In this short video, I discuss the conversion of, or repurposing of, a 1.5 hectare piece of farm field. Many in agriculture would describe this field as being marginal. It has limited productive potential and therefore is very rarely profitable. With the data available from yield monitors compared to sales and cost of production, it is not difficult to spot these marginal lands from an economics perspective. Marginal lands are typically at a disadvantage as compared to other areas of the tillable farm land. The trees in this introductory slide were planted in 2014 in a small area of unproductive pasture as a part of another tree planting project. In our example, the field we retired from agriculture was approximately 1.5 hectares in size. On three sides, it is surrounded by mature hardwood woodlands. At its narrowest point in the field, it's only 40 meters in width. The Ontario Soil Report identifies the soils here as Harriston Silt Loam and Park Hill Loam. Both soils are well drained and somewhat stony. While relatively flat in this portion of the field, erosion can be an issue on sloped sections of the field. This portion of the field chronically loses money, one of the reasons we chose to take it out of production. The soybean crop harvested the fall of 2019 yielded 20 bushels per acre here, compared to a 56 bushel average for the rest of the farm. Yield losses can be attributed to a variety of reasons, including shading from the surrounding woodlands, as well as predation of the crops from deer and raccoons. Our choice was to reforest the area using a 5-species mix of trees. While we may never see a harvest of timber in our lifetime, the planting has several benefits. It has recreational value for us. It contributes to a larger interior woodland area, benefiting some bird species. It provides for enhanced wildlife habitat and biodiversity. And it improves air quality and sequesters carbon. Over time, by removing this small piece of unprofitable ground from our tillable acres, we should see a small increase in average crop yield and in our bottom line. Are there other areas of the farm that are not profitable? Yes, but they are isolated pockets rather than a standalone site, and much more difficult to work around with equipment. Cover crops have not been a common practice on our farms, although we are beginning to use them more frequently. As noted in this picture, there are some shorter steep slopes and longer gradual slopes on this portion of the field, ranging from about 6 or 7% to 3%. Both can contribute to significant erosion, especially after fall tillage. The snow and ice covered lower portion of the photo shows the amount of gully erosion in the spring of 2020 prior to the tree planting. This erosion was the result of a failed catch basin at the top of the slope. The failure was due to lack of maintenance. This is the catch basin that served to catch tile water from the neighboring farm property. The neighbor's farm tiles outlet to a surface water ditch that runs through a woodland area. The catch basin had plugged with silt, branches, and leaves. Rather than outletting underground to an open ditch, the water ran overland. The snowmelt and heavy spring rains bypassed the catch basin and caused significant gully erosion. You can see in these photos the significant amount of topsoil that left the field with the gully erosion. Part of this tree planting project was also an effort to establish a grassed waterway to prevent further erosion without there being any future tillage on the site. The tree planting project we had completed in 2014 served up some valuable lessons about site preparation and tree species selection. In 2020, we purposely chose to plant the trees after the previous year's soybean crop. This decision was influenced by data presented by a local conservation authority that shows better survival rates and more favorable planting conditions following soybeans. A cover crop for weed suppression was a logical choice for this site. Access during the cropping season is very limited, so mechanical vegetation control is not a viable option. After reviewing some literature, we chose a mix of dwarf white clover and annual ryegrass as our ground cover. While this mix may invite issues from wildlife and rodents, it was one of the easiest mixes to establish with the least amount of work. The site was frost seeded on March 21, 2020 at a rate of 20 pounds per acre. A post-planting herbicide will be applied with an ATV sprayer to control the vegetation within the rows of trees. Tree planting began on May 5th using a tractor and two-person planting unit. Planting conditions were excellent. Planting in wet conditions can cause issues with the closing wheels on the planter smearing the trench and not properly closing the planting trench. Note that the planting occurred across slope. Planting up and down slope can cause erosion issues. Heavy rainfall immediately after planting can cause significant erosion of the planting trench. In all, just under 3,000 trees were planted on the site. Species included eastern white pine, eastern white cedar, European larch, Norway spruce, and red oak. The planting was finished in a day and a half. Some of the seedlings were smaller in size and may contribute to the eventual survival rate. You can note that the ground cover has yet to establish. Under the advice of the forester in charge of the tree planting prescription, tree guards were placed over the red oak trees to prevent predation from deer, rabbits, and mice. The guards, though made of biodegradable plastic, are breathable and allow enough sunlight to pass through that the oak could leaf out and continue to grow. With the site surrounded by mature hardwood woodlands, there will be some natural seeding of trees. In this photo, sugar maple seeds are germinating. Within the first 50 meters of the woodlands, there were thousands of seedlings beginning to grow. These will be left to naturally infill the planting area. Notice also that the cover crop in late May is just starting to germinate. Eastern white pine is a common tree species for reforestation, and it is a personal favorite of mine. Once established, it can grow quickly. White pine is typically planted for future harvest and economic returns. It should thrive in the full sunlight that this field offers, as well as the well-drained loam soils. White pine made up over 50% of the species mix for this planting. Eastern white cedar was planted at the lower slope position, adjacent to an existing mixed woodland of cedar, yellow birch, tamarack, and hemlock. The cedar should contribute to more white-tailed deer habitat, as it is a preferred winter browse. It will be slower growing than the other conifer species. European larch is similar to a native tamarack, but can tolerate drier sites. These trees, once the area are free to grow of any competition, will grow quickly. The cones and seeds they produce will provide a food source for many bird species. A single row of Norway spruce was established as a buffer between the tree planting site and the remaining tillable portion of the field. These trees are somewhat resilient to herbicide damage. Norway spruce are ideal trees for windbreaks as well. By late June, the cover crop was well established and is providing good weed suppression with its thick mat of vegetation. However, some volunteer canola has emerged. Herbicide-resistant canola was planted in this field over 10 years ago. Mechanical control, hand pulling, or mowing may be the only means of control before it goes to seed. Hopefully without future tillage or disturbance of the seedbed, this will no longer be an issue. The post-planting herbicide treatment has done a good job of eliminating the cover crop within the rows of trees. This will significantly improve the survivability of the trees as they don't have to compete for moisture or sunlight. There were rows that the sprayer either missed or ran out of herbicide after planting. You can see the lack of control in the rows on the left as compared to the control in the rows to the right. Unfortunately, the rows where there is no vegetation control are the rows with the European larch. Survivability is already low and will likely require a replant next spring. Trees can be a viable option in many farm operations. In this photo, hazelnuts have been planted to try and establish an Ontario crop. For our project, we have much appreciation to Forest Ontario and the 50 million tree program that partially funded the expenses. Jim and William Eccles of Eccles Forestry Limited provided the professional expertise to design the site and conduct the planting. Thank you for following along. I will be checking back in on the planting in the next year or two to monitor progress. If you'd like any more information about this, you can contact me through direct message at my Twitter account @FarmForGrandkids. Thank you.